Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back. We are continuing our series focusing on the clairabilities, and today we are discussing clairaudience. And if you're not familiar with what the clairabilities are, they're essentially just extraordinary connection to our physical senses. And it's not just focused on our five main senses, there are hundreds of other clairabilities that we can tap into, including empathy, emotional. There's a whole plethora of them. But for this series, we're focusing on the main four, which are clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. And for all of the clairabilities, not only the ones I'm discussing, you can access them by tapping into this meditative space. And despite what pop culture might want us to think, every single human being is capable of tapping into these extraordinary powers. Society really seems to mystify the clairabilities, and I think that's done on purpose, but that's a different video and we won't get too deep into that. But what I'm here to discuss is how you have the ability to tap into these senses so you can use them to better yourself, the lives of your loved ones, and potentially the lives of the collective as a whole. And as I mentioned earlier, today we are discussing clairaudience, which is essentially just psychic hearing. And this clair can be classified as telepathy or being able to hear voices or hidden messages in music or conversation. I'd also classify synesthesia in this grouping along with clairvoyance. And while clairvoyance has the opportunity to really offer us true guidance in our lifetime, it is unfortunately not taken as seriously as a gift as some of the other clairs. And this is because oftentimes, especially in childhood, if children start to speak out about the voices they're hearing, their parents shunt them off and give them a clinical diagnosis rather than actually listening to what the child is saying. And even if somebody is capable of tapping into this clair, they learn from a very young age that it's not safe to express the messages that come through, or more importantly, how they come to them. As most people would treat this as something that is wrong with them rather than a hyper connection to their sense of hearing. And in some instances, this can cause trauma, which actually put up barriers from them being able to tap into that psychic hearing until later down the line when they recognize the traumas, learn to take down the walls and open those senses back up the way they had in childhood. And in these instances, once they are able to actually open that channel back up, they themselves recognize that there was nothing to ever be afraid of in connecting with these other realms through their senses. Most oftentimes, the guidance they receive is truly something they need to hear. And it's usually something that helps them along their path towards their authenticity, towards their alignment, and towards their connection to themselves and the ether realms, and their guides. They learn that there is a true wisdom and strength in being able to connect to these sources. And again, every single person is capable of tapping into this, and especially with clairaudience, our ears are always picking up sounds from around us. The only time human beings experience pure silence is in space. So, as long as we are staying here on Earth, we have the ability to obtain messages from what we hear. It doesn't even have to be words. If you're listening to your radiator, there's clairaudience there if you learn how to tap into it. And I think the subtlety of clairaudience is brilliant, again, especially when you learn how to listen to the messages that come through. Because messages are frequency. Messages don't have to speak our language to be delivered. Messages are a wave. So I'll use the radiator as an example again. Maybe you're thinking about something and trying to decide which way to go, and then all of a sudden the radiator like does a jump almost and like stops and then starts really quickly again. That is a sign that can be tapped into using clairaudience. If we keep ourselves open to it, there is an absolutely abundant flow of messages and energy. It's masterful at what the waves can do when we allow it to penetrate our unconscious mind. And once we start tapping into this gift with curiosity rather than fear, there is no limit to how we can use this as a gift rather than a burden. And our openness and our non resistance is what this clair needs in order to open up for us in such beautiful, magical ways. This clair also gives us an increased ability to listen between the lines and find deeper meanings in conversations, song lyrics, or even conversations that you hear passing on the street that you're not involved in. And it's always something you feel intuitively you need to hear, and your attention can't help but snap to it at the exact right moment. For example, have you ever been laying on your couch watching some show or movie but not really paying attention? Maybe you're scrolling through your phone or reading a book or doodling as you're watching or listening in the background? But there's one instance in that show or movie that you can't help but pay attention to all of a sudden. And whether this is something you've watched 800 times or a brand new show or movie to you, it's that one sentence that all of a sudden you snap into awareness and really take in, that holds so much weight to whatever you are going through in your waking life. And you can't help but wonder. I wonder why I started paying attention at that moment. It's because unconsciously you were open and aware and tapped into your clair, and your clair brought that attention to you so you could hear the message you most needed to hear in that moment. And that's one fun way that you can even tap into this ability is ask yourself a question. Ask the universe a question. Say, what should I eat for dinner tonight? And then just turn on the TV and zone out for a while. Don't even pay attention to it. But the second that answer comes to you through that show, your awareness will be brought to it. And the more you do this and the more you recognize how often it occurs, oh, I have chills, how often it occurs, it feels like pure magic. And you recognize you can do this anywhere, any place you hear sounds or words or music or conversation or whatever it is, you recognize you can use your clair and just sit and wait for the answer to come to you. Or move and wait for the answer to come to you. But either way, if you approach it again with curiosity rather than fear, the answer will always appear. Another great way to do this is to go to a coffee shop and just sit and drink your coffee, read, relax, and keep your ears open. And again, it's an unconscious thing. You don't have to consciously be listening to every conversation around you, seeking it out. The clair and the message will find you. So if you wake up in the morning and you're really just needing guidance on a specific situation, ask yourself or the universe that question as soon as you wake up, and then let the answer come to you as you move through your daily life. With all of that said, it is so important that you allow the messages to come through without judgment or any sort of expectation. Oftentimes, with this clair, people expect the guidance to come through in their own voice, or alternatively, in a voice that's completely foreign to them. So, if they hear something that's either in their own voice or in another voice, but they were expecting something else, they might not hear the message that's trying to come through. Most oftentimes, these messages will come through however it will best resonate for you. And it's important not to get used to a single type of way that these messages come through or a single voice that you might hear in your head because they can change depending on where you are in life, the message that you're trying to receive or the question you're asking. If you work with deities, different deities can come through for you and those voices will be different from what you may be used to. But that doesn't mean the message is any less clear. And with all of that said, discernment is key when working with this clair. You have to have a crystal clear connection to your intuition to be able to understand when a message is for you versus when you can just shake it off and let it go. And the last bit of information I want to discuss regarding clairaudience is about the quantum field. That empty space that you zone into during meditation. Even if it's quiet, it doesn't mean there's a lack of messaging. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes these messages come in waves and frequency rather than language. So if you're zoning into that meditative space and you see this quantum field around you, keep yourself open to the quantum vibrations that can come through. And again, you might not hear the answer to the question, but a wave might penetrate your awareness, and that wave will bring you a knowing. And that's why it's important to work with all of these clairs simultaneously, because your clairaudience can bring you that claircognizance, that psychic knowing that you can't explain how you just know. And you know because you kept yourself open to the waves from clairaudience to come through. So even if you're in a meditative space and it seems silent around you, you're able to ask a question to the quantum field and allow the field to give you clarity, to bring you frequency, to bring you awareness from the silence. And the most important part about working with this clair, as well as all of the other clairs, is to have fun, be playful and curious with this energy, and stay open to the possibility of what it can bring you. Minimize your judgment and expectation, and keep your channels open. Keep yourself connected to your body and your intuition. And there's only magic that can occur from there. If you've had experience working with these clairs or you want to start trying it, leave a comment below and let me know how it went for you. I would love to hear your stories and your experiences. Otherwise, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this could bring you some clarity. Have fun and go out and play with your senses. They are there to make this life so much more magical and beautiful as you move through the world. Thank you guys.